Okie dokes. A few more new things for Illustrator. So you've probably made a bunch of different shapes at this point, and you may get to the point where you start building shapes on top of other shapes. So for example, I have this blue triangle here, and I want to place it on top of this aqua space here, but as you can tell, I can't see it, and that gets a little bit annoying. So I'm gonna Control Z to undo that. If you get in that boat where you really need something, a layer on top of another, there's a lot of ways you can approach it. Of course, you can sit here and go through your layers, but you may have a kajillion, and that could get annoying. So the first thing I recommend is to right click on that shape, and you could go to arrange, and I'm going to click bring to front. And it looks like nothing fancy happened, but now I'm going to drag it over, and you can see that it sits on top. I can't guarantee you it's going to work every time. If you have multiple layers here, it only moves it up to a certain point, but I usually tell people to try arrange first, and then if it's really giving you a hard time, then go into your layer panel and you could physically drag that layer up. You could see it's over here. There's like a little blue square that's very, very tiny that's showing us that it's selected right now. Okay. So that tends to be really helpful and handy as time goes on. Any questions about arrange? Okay, cool. There are other options with it. You can move things back as well. I usually use either bring to front or send to back. Yep. Yes. Okay. So you can go send to back like that and send it back if you wanted it to go away. So you have options with that too. So there's arrange for you. Another fancy thing I wanted to show you is you could adjust your opacity. So when we looked at some of our projects, when we were looking at the Padlet, so let's go back to that for a sec. And we have a billion different examples of currencies from different countries, which is really what I want to focus on. Okay. As you can tell here, like we do have some bright colors, but none of them are quite as strong as what I'm seeing in my samples here. So there's a way where I can make them a lot less saturated, and I can adjust the opacity. So if I want this aqua, but I just don't want it so solid, I can use my opacity slider here at the top. Maybe I'm going to bring it back to like 50 or whatever percent you want. It's up to you and what's going to work for you. The cool part about it is when you place different opacities on top of one another, you get different effects too, which is pretty cool. So this blue looks different on top of the aqua, but it also looks different on top of the white. Not dramatically different, but a little something. So I do highly recommend adjusting your opacity, because if we are sticking with something that looks realistic, we at least want to have some lighter elements to it. Not all, but at least some. Any other questions coming to mind before I move on to one more thing? Okay. Another thing that's really helpful, makes Illustrator a little different than Photoshop. We don't have like a duplicate layer function. There's a bunch of different ways you could do it. You could copy something and then Control V to paste it. So like you would in like Microsoft Word or something like that. Another option is you could hold down your Alt key, and you'll notice when I put my mouse over this shape and I hold the Alt key, I have like two little mouse arrowheads on there. And then I drag it over, and that's another way you could duplicate something. Again, it's just a fun fact for you. You don't necessarily have to use it, but it may be helpful. So that could work for you as well. Any other questions so far? All right, I'll show you one more tip, and then I'll leave you alone, I promise. I'm going to go back to text for a minute, just because I forgot to show you this last time. There's a really cool tool called the Touch Type tool. It's all the way at the bottom at the text menu here. And the cool part about it is if you just want to do something to one letter or number and not the rest of it, you can get a lot of customization. So let's say I want this one to be really gigantic in the scheme of things. I can make it really big like that. And I can also move it. I'm going to double click on it, and I can move it around. I could tilt it a little bit too if I wanted it. You probably don't need that, but you never know. You have more adjustments with it. So the cool part about the Touch Type tool is you can really move things around. It gives you the option to tilt things. It treats it more like a shape. Although you're probably not looking to tilt letters very often, you may want to make one, like your first number or letter, much more gigantic perhaps than the others. So it's there for you if you need it, but if you don't want to use it, don't feel bad at all. Okay. All right, so that's going to be our tidbit for today. I'll add a few more on tomorrow. Any other questions coming to mind so far? All right, cool.